Watch and learn. It's so thick. It's almost like a milkshake right now.
All right, so there's a different kind of spoiler warning for this because I'm not just going into webcomic spoilers, but I'm also going into what Murata has said on his stream. So if you think that's going to spoil the story for you, don't watch the video. So if you thought we were done with that leaked, quote unquote, information on one's notes that we got from Murata streams 2 years ago, we're not done with it. Because this information is still relevant and still leading us to the promised land, I suppose. I mean, just go backtrack it for yourself. Take a look at the 2 previous videos I've made on this information. The first one was called, why I think Orochi's coming back. Now, important thing about that video is that when I made that, Orochi was dead and he hadn't returned yet. And I was basically saying that, hey, guys, if we read between the lines, or even just take it for its face value, this is more or less telling us that Orochi is going to be coming back into the story. And you can imagine how fun the comments section is on that video. But then the follow-up video was made a couple months later after Orochi actually came back. And we took a look at this information once again. And I still see that there are some things that have yet to happen and could be showing us the future of the manga. And I'm going to be, going over this, but I'm also going to try to figure out everything else that is going to be happening by piecing in the remaining portions of the story from the webcomic. Now, also, I'm thinking that Murata and One have decided to take a big change in the story. Like, before they were kind of following it for, beat for beat recreation of the panels and the big moments. But now I'm thinking that instead of going from, beat to beat, exact replica of the dialogue and the panels and stuff like that, I'm thinking that they might just touch on the big moments from this point on, and then how this plays out. And I'm talking post Tatsumaki pulling the base out of the ground. I think things are going to be very different after this point. So let's get into it. All right, so the first bit of information was Orochi is probably included to let Tatsumaki get injured so Psykos can use the opportunity to sneak attack Tatsumaki, having her directly sneak attacking and injuring Tatsumaki. The original was a little far-fetched. So we're seeing that has totally come to fruition at this point. It's not just Orochi as we speculated, but it's Sairochi with the assistance of God. And I think that's definitely an audible that Murata called. But also let me mention that, these notes are going to change. A lot of this information has changed. I mean, he even said it at this time, which let me remind you, 2 years ago. We've been following this breadcrumb trail, or at least I have. But yeah, so things are going to change, but more or less I think this is a foundation because like we just talked about, Tatsumaki is clearly injured by her facing against Sairochi, the most injured she's ever been. So instead of her just getting randomly snuck up on and psychically bound the way that she was in the webcomic, so with chapter 132, we're essentially getting the beginning of what he was talking about there. But also with this chapter, we're getting further advancement to the other stuff that he talked about or regarding one's notes. And it's so fascinating to see it maybe even play out as expected 2 years ago, just like with Orochi, because all right, right here. The original plan was Orochi swings at the S-Class heroes with his monstrous strength. However, the S-Class heroes dodge and toy with him mercilessly with their speed and give the feeling that Orochi is just a final boss that possesses nothing more than pure strength and size. Orochi's horns transform into dragons and spit fire to the S-Class heroes. And then Orochi transforms into a huge monster. The S-Class heroes, 8 of them, fight together where each of them deals with and defeats one of the dragons while Tatsumaki finishes off Orochi directly. Okay, and then we'll finish off the rest of that after this, but the whole Orochi transforms into dragons, that is essentially what happened at the end of this chapter. Like, look, like what we were seeing before, like the whole Sairochi form is God's power up, the moth cocoon Evangelion thing, like that appeared right after Psykos was accepted into God's power pool. So I guess that's what he represents in this whole thing. Well, not him exactly, but his power. But now we're seeing Orochi's a part of this form, because he always was. But now it's like he's the bottom half, because if you see it on this one page, it's like it goes up kind of like the Dark Gundam from G Gundam, and then the bottom half is Orochi, and he's become these dragons just like what is mentioned here in the notes. And yes, of course, they are spitting fire. Now, there's not 8 of them in this one panel, there's 7, but in the next one, I count 6. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen if there is some kind of chosen number to this, or if it's going to be 7 or whatnot, because that plays into the number of S-Class heroes that are going to be fighting him, which takes me to where I think the next chapter is headed, or at least the next couple chapters, because I think this is where the S-Class heroes are going to start helping Tatsumaki take down Sairochi, because it's more or less going to line up with the rest of this information here. And like I was talking about earlier, this is where I think the story is going to drastically change. And instead of just hitting it beat for beat, the webcomic, it's just going to jump to major moments. But in between then, it's going to kind of be like a Murata freestyle almost. Because if these S-Class heroes do in fact come out of the rubble and fight Orochi's dragons here, helping Tatsumaki, then that means that they're going to be coming out way sooner than what they're supposed to. Because initially in the webcomic, after Tatsumaki pulls out the base, it's kind of just like her, Genos, and then Bang shows up. And then afterwards, like, all of the other S-Class heroes show up. Like, they're stuck under the rubble. Like, Puri's helping them. Child Emperor's down there. Pig God, like, grabs the disciples. Puri grabs Atomic and Child. So it's like, if they all come to the surface immediately, then that means all of that stuff is retconned. And the time table of all that stuff is retconned as well. But that's fine, because this bolsters the story and it gives those S-Class heroes more things to do and more feats. Because remember, in the webcomic, after this point, there's a lot of them that don't do anything. They're kind of just like the Dragon Ball Z reaction guys who just watch the fight and give commentary. And I also think that's the main reason why we see those psychic bubbles around everyone, because it's protecting them, obviously, and assuring that they're going to make it to the surface no problem. In the webcomic, there was no protection around them. Tatsumaki was much more ruthless in that continuity, and she was like, well, if you die, you die. And that's kind of how it went. So them being in this bubble is going to bring them to the surface immediately, and they're going to start helping Tatsumaki. Now, and that brings us to the question, of course, it's like, who is going to be a part of this team? Now, like it said, 8 originally. I don't know if that's still going to be the number, but it could be, because remember, our boy Metal Bat is back now. Not in the webcomics version originally. And I was like, why did they bring Metal Bat back? Well, obviously he's going to be helping them, but this is why, because he's going to have a big moment fighting against Orochi's dragons with the rest of them, or at least I hope so. So we've got Metal Bat, that's one of them. And then I think Atomic Samurai is going to come to the surface as well, because remember, he was one of those useless characters. Like, once he loses his sword, he just becomes a Dragon Ball Z commentator. And then he gets the Iron Sword, but that's way later on. And then we have Pig God, another useless one. Add him to the feats. Puri, why not? He's already got enough buffs. And then I guess my last pick was, we can swap out either Puri or Zombie Man for My Mask, because he's one of those people that pops in later on too. So just bring him to the surface earlier on, and he can easily fit into that battle, because it also says that they're toy with him mercilessly with their speed. And obviously My Mask is one of the fastest S-Class heroes, especially amongst the strike team here. So he fits right into there. So yeah, maybe it's going to be My Mask instead of Zombie Man or Puri. And then let's come to the final sentence of the information. When it says, just when everyone believes the fight is over. So at this point, Tatsumaki has defeated Sairochi, and the S-Class heroes have defeated Orochi's dragons. And, as it said before that, Tatsumaki finishes off Orochi directly. So I assume that means whatever's left of, like, Sairochi, the power-up from God, and Orochi's form itself, that will be defeated. And then Psykos will be ejected from it, and it will just be her human form in the rest of the arc from then on. And then the executives, who were originally buried by Tatsumaki, appear on the surface. So that's going to change the timetables as well, because they come out immediately. But obviously, in this point, we're going to have the whole Orochi precursor battle. So when the executives come to the surface, I think Tatsumaki might be exhausted at that point from taking down Sairochi or Orochi or whatever. And the Pure Ugly just levels her like he does in the webcomic, or she gets psychically bound by Psykos. Either way, that's going to happen. And that's pretty much as far as we need to go in this video, right? We scoped out what the next 5 to 10 chapters could possibly be. And by the time we get more chapters, then we can maybe come back to this information and see if it was true or not. But until then, if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like. Also, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. And I have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.